Welcome to this episode of our program Daily Debate. As usual, we will be discussing an important file. Today we'll be speaking about the development in Sinai. And Egypt has been implementing a national comprehensive plan to develop this very precious spot of our land, launching mega projects on every inch of it with investments amounting to 700 billion pounds in 8 years, all dedicated for the development of Sinai. The state is seeking to attract investments and, of course, residents to move to the Sinai Peninsula by carrying out development projects and providing job opportunities to boost the national economy and maritime national security. Also, the state has been carrying on with lots and lots of initiatives that has put Sinai into a top priority file and has put this very precious spot, the prior file in this or in the past and this upcoming stage through many cities, through several projects on different spheres. Tonight we'll be speaking about how Sinai is a prior file for Egypt and highlight the comprehensive plan, what was achieved and how significant this is. Before we move on with our discussion, let me first have a quick look on the top story of the day. And President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi attended a graduation, or rather the graduation of batches of students of military colleges at the quarters of the military academy in Cairo. Addressing the batches in attendance, President Sisi said that Egypt stands on a solid ground and can pass the impacts of the current global crisis despite its difficulties with security and stability. In his address to the world, President Sisi said the current crisis will end despite its hard impact as the coronavirus, which lasted for around 2 years, passed and the world is able to live with now. He added that he was also sure that the terrorism attacks against the nation in 2013-2014 would pass, as many crises did, with God's will and His mighty, and whoever reads history would have seen that. However, he affirmed the importance of security and stability in enabling nations to overcome the difficulties. He said no country can achieve progress and overcome its problems without security and stability, and hailed the efforts made by the Egyptian army, police and citizens, saying thanks to them more than 104 million people in Egypt live with hope for tomorrow. During the ceremony, students of the police and military academies presented the military academy shield to President Sisi. And moving on to our episode tonight, and before we move on to the report, let me here welcome our distinguished guest, Engineer Hassan Shaban, political analyst. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Before we move on with our discussion, let me first take this report on Egypt developing Sinai.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi inaugurated the world's largest wastewater treatment plant, Bahr al-Bakar Wastewater Treatment Plant, east of Port Said, which will treat 5.6 million cubic meter per day, which can then be used to irrigate agricultural land in Sinai. Irrigation Ministry spokesperson said the plant aims to process 2 billion cubic meters of water annually to contribute to the reclamation of between 400,000 and 500,000 faddans as part of the national project to develop Sinai and make optimal use of water resources. He added that Egypt's water resources are estimated at 60 billion cubic meters per year, 55 billion of which come from the River Nile and 5 billion from rain and underground sources, forcing the government to look for other sources, noting that the state is currently involved in building wastewater projects that will help process 20 billion cubic meters annually. He revealed that soon the Bahr al-Bakar station will be joined by Al Hammam station in the west of the delta, And while water treated by Bahr al-Bakr will irrigate Sinai, water processed by Al Hammam station will be used to irrigate lands round Al Natrun. On his part, the Ministry of Housing and New Community spokesman said that 146 wastewater treatment projects with a combined daily capacity of 5.8 million cubic meters are currently under construction in Egypt. Head of the Agricultural Syndicate, Saeed Khalifa, said that the government is aiming to expand Egypt's inhabited land from 14 to 17% of the land mass, and most of this increase will be in Sinai. Water treated by Bahr al-Bakr will reach the peninsula through underground pipelines to reclaim land there. President el-Sisi said that Egypt is in a race against time to double its water resources, noting that the cost of treating wastewater to cultivate 500,000 faddans in Sinai will reach £160 billion, which will be covered by soft-term loans from Arab development funds. Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli said during the inauguration that projects to develop and populate Sinai have cost £700 billion so far, noting that the government is currently implementing 63 projects, the most important of which include the building of 6 underground tunnels to link Sinai with the rest of Egypt, stressing make of Sinai a population magnet. The Premier added that as part of this strategy, seawater desalination plants are being developed, describing it as central to populating and developing Sinai. He added that the plant currently being built at Al Arish will produce 300,000 cubic meters annually of desalinated water. Dr. Madbouli stressed that populating Sinai is central to Egypt's national security objectives, and the main vehicle for this is the National Project for Developing Sinai, one of the first initiatives launched by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi following his election in 2014. Major General Ihab al-Far, head of the Armed Forces Engineering Organization, said the flow of water from Bahr al-Bakr to Sinai will speed up the process of populating the peninsula. He added that the armed forces are participating in developing Sinai through 2 kinds of projects: building 34 seawater desalination stations to produce 442 million cubic meters of drinking water to meet the needs of the population of Sinai, and constructing 36 wastewater treatment stations to process 473 million cubic meters per year of water to irrigate agricultural lands.
Right, welcome back, and let me again welcome our distinguished guest, Engineer Hassan Shaban, political analyst. Again, thank you for being with us. And before I start with the development, the enormous development that occurred in Sinai, let me here ask you why Sinai is a prior file for Egypt.
Actually, not for Egypt only, it's for the whole area. When you look at the map, Sinai lies in the core of the Middle East. This is the center of gravity for the whole area. But, you know, it's the link between the East and the West in the Arab countries, you know, between the Mediterranean Arab countries and the Eastern Arab countries. And I think due to the circumstances that took place since 1948 and the number of wars that we went through, Sinai was not neglected, but we were not in a position to develop Sinai because it was almost all the time a battlefield. But as we enter the era of peace with Israel, and I think Sinai will take its normal and deserved place in the area, because I think Sinai could be, in my humble opinion, the Wall Street of the whole area. I mean, if we actually attract foreign banks and investors. I think Sinai could enjoy a very high rank in the world economy.
That's exactly the comprehensive plan that we've been speaking about, attracting investments, attracting industries, trying to mobilize all our tools in order to be able to attract the comprehensive national plan to change life in Sinai. How do you view the features of such a plan?
Actually, it's a very ambitious plan. It serves the purpose of the redistribution of the massive population in the Delta and the Valley. I mean, Sinai is probably 1/3 of the total area of Egypt, and I think at least we should try to attract population to Sinai, not less than 15 to 25 million population. And to do this, we need to really see what does Sinai offer to this population, gradually, of course. I think the point of start lies around the lake of Bardawil.
Yes.
Please, go ahead.
Bardawil is part of the overall plan because the amount of development that occurred, particularly in the past few years, were enormous. But I'll try to take it step by step.
Okay.
Bardawil is very particular in my scenario or my script today. But if I start with efforts to develop the investment and industrial infrastructure in order to encourage investors and attract them to Sinai, plus the canal cities.
You see, what's going on in Sinai in the field of infrastructure is very similar to what's happening all over Egypt on the motherland. Highways, roads, bridges, and so forth. The crossroads. But now Sinai is accessible. I mean, you can reach any point in Sinai with no big effort. Transportation will be real easy in Sinai. You can cover the whole area in no time. So roads is really one of the major things that we managed to accomplish. And this serves the development in Sinai. One thing, Sinai is very unique in certain products. I think Sinai could be a major producer of salt, industrial salt as well as natural salt. I'm talking here about raw salt, where you can use the raw salt as a material that you could get things out of it. I mean, chemically, we could establish a number of plants and factories in Sinai to produce bromine, which is one of the substances that goes into tranquilizers. Very few countries in the whole world actually produce this material. And we import a big number of bromine to use it as tranquilizers in Egypt. I think a lot of industries could be connected with the production of salt. Especially, we have an excellent market. Before the 1967 war, Japan used to load all the empty cargo ships coming from Europe going back to Japan empty with Egyptian salt. As the Suez Canal was blocked at that time, they substituted this by producing or actually developing salt fields in Australia. So we need to retrieve what we used to do. I mean, we were very successful in the production of salt, and I think this is a major industry in Sinai.
Of course, we're speaking here about a total public investment for Sinai and the canal cities of 45.1 billion. That was the fiscal year 21-22. And definitely we're speaking about 8,800 companies, 8 industrial projects. I'm speaking here about Sinai and the canal cities.
Yes.
I'm speaking about industrial investment map that shows Sinai and the canal cities have 275 investment opportunities. Let me speak here about a very precious spot in Sinai, the Suez Canal area, the Suez Canal route and zone, because this area has it all. The route
Exactly. Very true.
and the industrial zone.
Let me put it this way. I think we superseded the fact that the Suez Canal is only a waterway. It's not a waterway. It's not a channel that connects the Red Sea by the Mediterranean. I think the Suez Canal area is a logistic spot. And I think maybe the studies in the future will show that we're going to have a dock, dredged into the land of Sinai, like a dock, loading dock, to load salt, and then go back to the channel itself, the Canal Suez Channel. I think the Suez Canal area is a hub where a lot of industries could be located both sides on the east and the west banks of the Suez Canal. Also, there is a very important spot actually, which is on the Bitter Lakes, the major Bitter Lake, which is Fayed. I think Fayed is also a spot where it could be developed, and it could be a beach, a resort attraction to the population that will be resident in the new administrative capital, because the distance between both cities is like 50 or 60 kilometers. So I think we ought to use all the tools that will make us achieve a touristic boom, because Sinai also have touristic
enormous.
Right.
We'll speak about that section, of course, also. In order to make this area and others, I mean here Sinai, the Suez Canal and the canal cities and all this, in order to do that, there was enormous work for paving the way for that. And that means lots of infrastructure, services, and all that. How do you view the efforts that was exerted by the government in this?
In brief, of course, electricity and water are the keys to life. If you want to develop any place, you need water and electricity. And I think we managed to do this by establishing the Bahr al-Baqar desalination and water treatment plant in Sharqiya. I think the water produced from that plant actually will serve the purpose of turning Sinai to a green area. The north of Sinai is very fertile, and I think a lot of crops could grow over there. I think the infrastructures that we achieved in Sinai, it's almost like a miracle. It's a dream come true, actually. One cannot believe really what's going on over there, because while our army is fighting terrorism, we're building from scratch everything.
Of course, I have to mention also the Suez Canal as a route, because the Suez Canal plus, of course, the new Suez Canal that has the total length of the project of this new area was 72 kilometers.
Yes, around that.
24 meters deep, and instead of the direct transit taking 10 to 11 hours non-stop. Yes, the previous time was 18, which has shortened this area. You spoke about a very important project, which is water treatment. Bahr al-Baqar. Of course, Bahr al-Baqar was not the only, one of the biggest water treatment project, of course, beside others. But before I move on with speaking, since you brought up the issue of Bahr al-Baqar, let me here take our second report. And Egypt allocates billions for development in Sinai, and Bahr al-Baqar is part of that. Let's watch.
Egypt is working on a plan to attract Egyptians to settle in the Sinai Peninsula by implementing development projects and providing job opportunities. Development boosts hope and prosperity in Sinai and canal cities. More than 700 billion Egyptian pounds of investments were and are being implemented to develop the Sinai Peninsula in 8 years. Development of investment and industrial infrastructure to attract and encourage investors in Sinai and canal cities. The Egyptian state has set the Sinai Peninsula on the path of real development since its launch. It has launched a comprehensive plan for the development of the turquoise land. It has launched major and unprecedented national projects covering various sectors, linking the Eastern Egyptian portal to the Delta by making the canal cities a natural extension of the Nile Valley and overcoming all obstacles in order to attract investment opportunities. In addition to the interest in service sectors such as education, health, and agriculture, as well as the focus on providing all forms of support and social protection to Sinai people. Such plan contributed to a paradigm shift that changed the face of life in Sinai and transforming it into a promising attraction and an environment conducive to investment and reconstruction in a state of security and stability, which has also led international institutions to commend Sinai's continued development efforts at various levels. The government is hoping this plan will also boost the national economy and preserve national security. Marking the 40th anniversary of Sinai liberation, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi described the peninsula as a precious portion of the homeland, the pearl on Egypt's crown, and that it will always remain a source of pride for this nation.
Of course. That is a lesson that we, generations after generations, learned. And these were the stages that enabled us to reach what we are in today. War, peace, terrorism, everything that passed by this nation and this very precious land, Sinai. All this and all these circumstances we have passed by, and we have passed through very difficult times, and I guess that shows the resilience of the Egyptian people to overcome all the difficulties and challenges that come in the face or that occur in their lives. Back to what we were speaking about, and we were speaking about Bahr al-Baqar, as we've seen in this report, and I have to say that enormous projects, particularly also agricultural ones and fisheries and all this. That, of course, has really called or demanded us to do all such projects. How do you view those projects that we carried out with the agricultural, the fisheries, and all these important projects?
I'd like to point out that the fishery activities in Sinai actually was there for a long time, and the lake of Bardawil was a source of fish to the Paris fish market. I mean, we used to export our fish to France. That was some time ago, and now the government, due to the fact that Bardawil Lake was subject to negligence, it actually lost some of its depth. And I think the government have very successfully managed to dredge the lake recently and enhance life in the lake. And I think very soon they will enlarge an ice factory. You know, they had an ice factory over there to use it in freezing and preserving fish that is transported to the mainland. From that point all the way to Arish, actually, you have a beautiful beach, actually. And I think we need to reconsider the way to develop this particular area, because this could be a tourist attraction, similar to Sharm el-Sheikh. I don't think that is less than Sharm el-Sheikh in any way. It could actually develop and become a very important tourist attraction.
Yes. Tourism has very special part here, but here we're speaking about 1.1 million fidans, of which 239,000 fidans were cultivated until the end of March this year. 18 agricultural clusters were established. Fish farming projects of more than 9,900 basins, and as you said, respectively here, developing the Lake Bardawil in North Sinai, which has costed us, by the way, 120 million pounds. Silos. And Egypt, these ideas of Egypt being the international hub for storing food.
Yes.
And we've been speaking about the importance of building huge silos in order to be able to do that. Your comment on that idea?
Few years ago, a lot of people were wondering, why are we building all these silos? Now it's very obvious that silos built in Egypt will not only serve the Egyptian targets, but also will serve the African and the Middle East requirements. So you know, the Ukrainian-Russian war actually made it very clear that we should change the philosophy in the area, and these silos became a strategic aim, actually. So I think very soon we will see Sinai as a strategic logistic investment, let me put it this way. This is an area where it's important to not only to Egypt, but also to the rest of the neighboring countries, to Jordan, to Saudi, to Israel, and to Egypt, of course. So I think Egypt is turning Sinai to a link between East and West, finally. especially with the peace process going on. I think Sinai will serve the purpose of connecting the Arab world.
Since we spoke about agriculture and all this, then we have to speak also about developing the irrigation system. This is from one side. We have to also speak about providing the most prominent Sinai water supply projects that, as we have seen in the wastewater treatment projects, such as Bahr al-Baqar and Mahsama treatment.
Well, there is a number
plant.
of about 17 water treatment locations in Sinai.
Yes,
it's
indeed.
a huge thing.
Indeed.
I think agricultural efforts will actually increase in Sinai. We have a target of developing about 1.2 million faddans in Sinai to serve the population that will be relocated to Sinai. You need Sinai to be self-sufficient, at least vegetable and strategic crops and so forth. You know, I think Sinai also, in addition to depending on water treatment and probably part of the water comes from the River Nile, also we should consider agriculture on or planting on salt water directly and creating the largest area to grow camels actually in the Middle East. There is a plant that we are trying to promote, and it's very successful so far in Saudi Arabia and in United Arab Emirates and in Egypt, that grows directly on seawater without any treatment. And it could be used as a food for camels. And this opens the field to have the largest camel farm in the Middle East.
The government has been, and the state and the leadership has been trying to attract people to come to Sinai and extend population into this area. Through that, or because of that, the government has been very keen to make life much easier there. Drinking water projects, we're speaking about some of the infrastructure that enable people to facilitate this issue: roads, tunnels, floating bridges, railway network, this fast one also for investment, dry ports and airports. How do you view how people, citizens, saw that, and how do you view the enormous projects and services that were made, of course, housing units that were made in this area?
I would like to tell you a small story before I comment on this. In the early 30s, when Ismail Pasha Sabki decided to pave the Alexandria Corniche, and he made it 2 lanes in 2 directions. And a lot of people criticized this because this was a waste of money in their opinion, and nobody will use this road. Can you imagine Alexandria without a Corniche, without the seafront road? People just rush to conclusions. They cannot really read the future. Once you relocate 5 million people to Sinai, you're going to have to be ready for that. They're not going to go over there and just suffer. They're not going in a camp. Now you have just across the canal, you have the new administrative capital, and we're going to have Sinai in a way that we could actually attract young people to go over there and have jobs in factories,
Job
work in farms.
Indeed.
And you know, the government is really working hard to facilitate the projects, hospitals, schools, everything. So really, you cannot just judge things while you're sitting really without really experiencing what's happening in Sinai. Sinai was completely neglected, and now we're turning it to a jewel, the jewel of Egypt.
Indeed, indeed it is. Lots and lots of investments were made there, and I have here to speak also about the renewable energy projects, renewable and the expansion of natural gas and petroleum and petrochemical projects in Sinai. How do you view the importance of those?
Definitely, I hope that the government will have a location like the Bimban station in Aswan in Sinai. This will actually help to actually produce clean electricity in Sinai. You know, I think what's happening in Sinai in all the fields. You see, we have very important spots. We have Sharm el Sheikh, you have Dahab, you have Al Arish, you have Taba. You know, you have a lot of spots that could be, you know, very attractive to tourists who wants to fled Europe during this very cold winter coming with the gas crisis in Europe. A lot of Europeans actually will consider coming to Egypt, actually, and we have to be ready for that.
Imagine that we made here projects in areas that we never imagined that we can do that in, and I'm speaking here about the Rafah,
new city, new
definitely, even projects in Birat. Tourism. And since you brought up the beauty of such cities we've been speaking about, we also have to add to that Hurghada, Nuweiba, St. Catherine, and the holy route
of the family,
the route of the Holy Family. Yes, indeed. And so, how do you view how the government has worked on trying to construct and renovate those areas in order to be to attract more tourism? I guess Sinai has it all, right? Religious, entertainment, cultural, you name it, heritage.
It's actually ready for this flip, actually, for this boom. I think the St. Catherine area is very important in our program. I have to remind you that Sinai is the only spot that saw God, actually. This is where, you know, if you just read in the Quran and in the Torah, I think we need actually to treat this area with a lot of respect and try to insinuate people to visit this area. It's, in my opinion, that's a holy area. So I think St. Catherine is a beautiful attraction to tourism, and I think the government is encouraging people to develop hotels in this area, and let's hope that the coming era will see a jump in the number of tourists in Sinai.
I have two remaining questions. I hope we have the time for that. The social protection programs in Sinai, I mean here, decent life and takaful, or rather decent life and solidarity and dignity, plus of course the expanding the scope of beneficiaries of the pension, all those initiatives. How do you view Sinai part of those initiatives?
You're integrating Sinai to the mainland, actually. What applies on the mainland applies on Sinai, and the people in Sinai used to feel isolated for some time. Now this is history. I mean, we're talking about you know, a new era, and Sinai will join the development program that the government is following.
Finally, I have only 1 minute here, and I need from you to tell me how the world see Sinai from and what has been made in Sinai during the past period.
What's happening in Sinai is a dream come true. That's it. I don't really have anything to comment more than that. And I hope the government will continue, because we need a lot of work in Sinai. And I invite the Egyptians to rediscover Sinai, and the potentials in Sinai are tremendous, actually.
Indeed, indeed. And we invite the whole world to see what happened in Sinai, because what happened in Sinai recently was enormous.
Right.
Engineer Hassan Shaban, political analyst, we thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
And I guess that takes us to the end of this episode of our program, Daily Debate. Next debate will be on Sunday. Until then, it's good night and have a lovely weekend.